Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic. This is Battlefield 1. In today's weapon review, we're going to be taking a closer look at the Vetterli-Vitali M1870. One of my personal kind of love-hate weapons from Battlefield 1. Specifically, of course, this weapon comes from the In the Name of the Tsar DLC, the Russian DLC, and to unlock it, you're going to have to get 15 kills with the M1903 Experimental, a weapon that recently saw a buff in the time to kill patch, so something that shouldn't be too hard to achieve, as well as get 20 periscope spot assists. This, of course, for the infantry version of the Vetterli-Vitali. If you wish to unlock the Carbine version, essentially a version of this weapon with an optical optic on it, you're going to have to get 50 kills with the SMLE MK3 Carbine, as well as destroy one vehicle with K bullets. The unlock requirements then out of the way, let's talk stats. Now for this weapon, we've got a sweet spot damage model between 20 and 50 meters. That is, between 20 and 50 meters, you will be doing 100 damage when you hit your target in the chest. Before that, you're looking at 90 damage or slightly more, and after that, your damage will of course drop off eventually to 70 damage, meaning that a body shot at long range is not going to be a guaranteed kill assist counts as kill if somebody else then upon your shot downs that target. Just something to note there. When it comes to the fire rate, things are a little bit bleak. 46 rounds per minute is definitely not on the fastest side of things, neither is the muzzle velocity at 440 meters per second. Speaking of not so impressive stats, the magazine size sadly isn't really the best either here, with only 4 shots available to you and a relatively hefty reload, or at least lengthy reload, to deal with one bullet taking you 2.98 seconds, almost 3 seconds to reload, each additional bullet taking you 0.76 seconds. If you wish to reload 3 or all of the available bullets, you're going to be looking at a 3.8 second reload, something that in the more close medium range that you will be using this weapon could actually negatively impact you in one way or another. In other words, get you killed. When we talk about recoil about scout weapons, it's generally just really a side note, and the same comes for this weapon with vertical recoil of 2, horizontal recoil to the left and right of 1, and of course a first shot recoil multiplier of 1. Accuracy here is the usual scout values that we expect, with a base ADS that's aiming down sight while not moving of absolutely 0. The only thing you have to account for is of course bullet drop here, as well as an accuracy while moving that's aimed down sight and moving simultaneously of 1, and the usual atrocious hip fire for scout weaponry at 4. The usual thing applies when you're taking your shot, stand still, unless you're in extreme close quarters where you can move, but generally don't try and hip fire things. That just tends not to work out for you. Stats out of the way, let's start talking about where this weapon fits in and why it's such a, well, love-hate relationship weapon for me. Well, this is partly down to the fact that this is an aggressive scout weapon. It's to be used at medium range. It can be used from 20 meters onwards, which is pretty much close quarters if we're honest. This is a range at which shotguns are still effective. SMGs and LMGs rip through enemies ridiculously quickly, albeit no longer with their 4-shot kill. Still at 5-shot kills, they're going to have plenty of damage to dish out, and of course their spread won't be getting in the way of their performance at this range. So this weapon has to at least come in with its sweet spot damage model. The problem, of course, with this sweet spot damage model, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is that at these ranges, you're 100% reliant on it. At least most players will be if you play according to the sweet spot damage model, if that's what you're focusing on. And other weapons, such as the Martini-Henry, for example, offer more certainty there. That is to say, they have not only, well, larger sweet spots. In the case of the Martini-Henry, we're talking about a 50 versus, in the case of the Vetterli-Vitali, 30-meter sweet spot. But they also have a essentially secondary sweet spot, or at least the Martini-Henry does, there between 42 and 68 meters, where even if you shoot them in the arm, which is something that can very much happen when you're essentially quick scoping people in close medium range, you're still going to actually get your 1-shot kill. That's one downside to this weapon. Of course, it's got a much better fire rate, larger magazine than that of the Martini-Henry. What really pulls this weapon down for me personally is actually the fact that its muzzle velocity is so bad. Because while I'm not going to go too extensively into the aggressive scout play, my aggressive scout play style, of course, being able to deal with targets at a huge variety of ranges, not just medium range, is essential to this class. Otherwise, I could be using a different class, a class that is more suited for medium range, one of the medic SLRs, for example. And this is where a weapon that has not only a minimum damage of 70, but more importantly has such an atrocious muzzle velocity at 440 meters per second really starts to get in the way personally for me and my enjoyment of this weapon. On the other hand, when you hit your shots and you hit them in the chest of your enemy, you're looking at absolutely ridiculous performance of a scout weapon at a ridiculously, relatively speaking, close quarter range, and being able to really essentially run on almost the front lines of any kind of game modes. A scout class giving out valuable intel with the help of, for example, your spotting flare is extremely beneficial to your team, and this is why I've generally enjoyed the more aggressive scout play that I've recently been engaging with some of the multitude of weapons that are available, a lot more than I previously have, for example, more the long-range scout play. Before we get into actually talking about how this weapon, however, compares to some of the other scout weapons besides the Martini-Henry, let's talk about the second version of the Vetterli-Vitali, the Carbine version. There's only a few differences here that I need to note, hence there's not going to be some kind of graphical illustration of them. Essentially, it really comes down to if you can be just as accurate with the optical sight that is on the Carbine version of this weapon. If you can, then arguably the Carbine is the better choice, for it comes with generally better accuracy values. That's to say, if you ADS and move simultaneously, you're looking at a value of 0.5 versus 1 on the infantry. If you are in any kind of hip firing state, not that you should be hip firing, but if for some reason you are hip firing the weapon, the Carbine version is once more significantly more accurate. Where the Carbine version loses out is when it comes to recoil decrease and spread decrease, two values that for scout weapons are, at least in my experience, absolutely irrelevant and thus really play no part. It's going to come down to the fact if you prefer an infantry version with iron sights or a Carbine version with an optical sight on it. Then let's talk about the competition here. The competition is the Martini-Henry, the Type 38 Arisaka, the Gewehr M95, or even the Carcano, another weapon I actually haven't done a weapon review on yet. And they all have a huge variety of stats. The one thing that they consistently, however, have that the Vetterli-Vitali doesn't is that much stronger muzzle velocity. Even if it's only those 620 meters of the Gewehr M95, which in turn comes with a much higher fire rate at 66 rounds per minute, there is just clearly an advantage in having that little bit higher muzzle velocity. I personally find it makes a difference. However, weapons like the Gewehr M95 are not set out on a sweet spot damage model basis. That is to say, they don't have a sweet spot damage model to take advantage of, unlike the Vetterli-Vitali, which does, which really leaves this weapon in a difficult spot. Objectively speaking, in my opinion, it's a little bit underpowered. It doesn't quite manage to keep up with weapons like the Martini-Henry when it comes to the stats of things. On the other hand, it is unique, and the weapon clearly has its niche. It's even more aggressive than the Martini-Henry, especially when it comes to dealing with multiple targets. And thus there is times where this weapon can absolutely shine and is an absolute beast. And I've experienced it myself, and hence the love-hate relationship. This weapon gets me killed so many times, and then occasionally it just rewards me with absolutely superb performance and superb gameplay. At least, well, when I'm using it properly, it does, which is quite difficult to achieve. That really explains the love-hate relationship, at least in my opinion. And thus I'm really curious actually to what you guys have experienced, what you guys think of the Vetterli-Vitali, because I really think it's a weapon you're either going to love-hate or you're just going to be absolutely torn on. But it's really difficult to actually objectively look at this weapon because objectively it's just not good enough. But when you use it and you use it correctly, thanks to its sweet spot damage model, it does have that niche where it can truly shine. So leave your opinions, your experiences as per usual down below in the comments, or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.